Innovation literature is full of myths about innovation. There are many stories about how things started, the origin of this company, the garage basement story from that place, and even back to ancient history, the Eureka story of Archimedes, that are told over and over again because they're great stories. The problem is that most of them are not true. And even stories that get published in books about how Post-it notes were made or who founded Pixar, and it wasn't Steve Jobs, they get told as if they're true, but they're not actually true. So within this space of innovation, there are lots of myths. But there are 10 myths that we'd like to discuss here that prevent people from pursuing innovation. And these are the worst myths of all. These are the things that keep people from pursuing greatness and trying new things. We'll talk about each, what the myth is, and then why it's not actually true. The first myth, the one that's probably the most pervasive, is the idea of the lone genius. This really appeals to us. It makes great movies when you have one person who triumphs against all odds to come up with something great. This is the Alexander Graham Bell, Thomas Edison type inventor who toils away on their own and creates something great. It's also the story that's told about Steve Jobs, because people forget about Steve Wozniak, or Bill Gates, because people forget about Steve Ballmer. The truth is, there are very few lone geniuses out there that create something completely unique on their own. Everyone else is building on the great things of others and getting input from others. And as they get input from other sides, they refine and change their ideas. And that's really important. So it's not the case that Steve Jobs was all by himself and came up with the whole idea of personal computing and the graphical interface that made Apple II so great. He combined a lot of ideas from other people with a lot of input from a lot of people to make that great innovation. The second myth is that innovation happens somewhere else. Innovation is something that other people do. Maybe they're research scientists, maybe they're Silicon Valley tycoons, but it's not something that I do. Well, that's one of the reasons I decided to make this whole course, was to just say there's nothing out there that actually talks about these issues. And if I don't do it, who will? We all have something to contribute. We all have unique experiences and unique perspectives on the world. Innovation happens wherever you want it to happen. A third myth is that innovation happens within a flash of brilliance. This is the idea that you have Albert Einstein working at a chalkboard, and then all of a sudden he just writes down E = mc squared. Well, that idea built on ideas all the way back to Newton. It wasn't that he just had it. He had a hunch of an idea, and he built on that hunch with other people and with over time until he finally did make the breakthrough. It's not that he would not have had that breakthrough without hard work and without really thinking about the same problem and struggling with it for a long time. So the flash of brilliance kind of depends on your time horizon. Sure, it was a brilliant idea at that moment, but if you look at the course of Einstein's career, it took a long time for him to come up with that flash of brilliance. A fourth myth is that only companies can innovate because they have the resources necessary to do it. You need Xerox Research Park in order to come up with a graphical interface. It couldn't be just the lone innovator, right? The great thing about the internet and the flattening of the world is that now, for just a few dollars, you can have access to all kinds of things that weren't available before. You can go down to a local makerspace in your town and you can make your own prototype that would have been prohibitively expensive in the past. But now the barriers of entry have really gone down. You can create things on a computer and share them around the world. They can either be text or photos or videos, music, so much more easily and quickly that you don't need all those resources. And that means the capital costs of starting something are so much lower, which is what's really exciting right now. A fifth myth is that you need some kind of special education to do innovation. The innovation is something that is only done in Ivy League universities at the ivory tower. And universities are known for coming up with lots of ideas, but it's not unique to them. My wife's grandfather was a truck driver, and one of the things that he ended up adding to his truck was a piece of lumber above the cab that was at an angle, so that when the wind hit his windshield, it would go over the back end of the load he was hauling. Well, that idea has actually become a very popular feature within big rig trucks. When he did it in the 1950s, it was kind of unusual. He always said he wished he'd patented that idea because he could have made a lot of money. He didn't have a big formal education, but he had his own experience, and that's what he needed in order to come up with that innovation for himself.